Hello everyone and welcome to one more episode of our series called Brazilian True Crime. Today we're delving into one of the most chilling cases in Brazilian history. This is the story of Francisco de Assis Pereira, aka Maníaco do Parque, the Parque Maniac. His crimes sent shockwaves through São Paulo in the late 1990s, and to this day his name is synonymous with terror. Viewer discretion is advised, as the details of this case are extremely disturbing. So who was Francisco de Assis Pereira? Francisco de Assis Pereira was born in 1967 in São Paulo. For much of his early life, he appeared to be just an average guy. He worked as a motorcycle courier and was described by many who knew him as a polite, calm, and even charming. However, beneath the seemingly normal exterior lurked a deeply disturbed individual. Francisco's life began to spiral into darkness during the 1990s. His fascination with sadism and violence against women started to emerge, and he developed a twisted desire to manipulate and prey on vulnerable young women in the city. Little did anyone know that this fascination would lead him to commit a string of brutal murders. Francisco's modus operandi was as cunning as it was sinister. He would approach young women, often in Ibirapuera Park, one of São Paulo's most popular parks, posing as a talent scout for a modeling agency. He promised these women fame, fortune, and a glamorous future in the modeling world. Many of his victims, hopeful and excited about the opportunities he described, willingly followed him into secluded areas of the park, completely unaware of the horrific fate awaiting them. So actually, in Brazil, there's the brand Avon, I think it's Avon. It's like huge in Brazil, and they used to, I think they still do, but they used to have like a magazine that, everyone would check out this magazine to see the new products, to see what kind of things they would buy, and they would choose from the magazine and tell whoever was selling to them. And because this is a very huge brand and almost everyone would buy monthly something from this brand, he used to say that he was going to take photos of them, and those photos would be in this magazine. So you imagine these people, these women that were with a low self-esteem, that something happened to them, because he chose victims that he knew they would accept. He knew that they would follow him, even though they had no idea what it was going to happen to them. Of course, there were many women that didn't accept, but of course, some did. Once isolated, Francisco would turn on his victims. He subjected them to brutal sexual violence and, in many cases, murder. His ability to charm and manipulate his victims made him all the more dangerous. So there was a fence in between, like the way to go to the place that he would commit all of these crimes, and the alive victims always say, and even the police, when they went back with him, he got caught, said that whenever he went through that fence, he became the maniac. He became the monster. Whenever he was outside of the fence, he was completely different. He looked different and he acted differently. The discovery of the bodies. In 1998, the bodies of several young women began to appear in the vicinity of Ibirapuera Park. and nearby wooded areas. These women had all been brutally assaulted and murdered. The police were initially baffled, but it soon became clear that they were dealing with a serial killer, someone who was specifically targeting women in one of the city's most... His childhood was very, very sad. He was abused. He was neglected. I don't know if there is a translated book, but there is a book that the author is called Ulisses Campbell. He is a Brazilian author, and he that's his fourth book, like in with this topic, Brazilian crime. And he just launched a new book about Francisco. And there are many stories there. It's very interesting. And there is a story that when he was a kid, people would laugh at him because he did have a very hard time learning. So he had like some disability or something like this. And the teacher, asked him to go to the front and write, some word on the board. And when he couldn't, the kids started laughing. And he peed himself. This is a kid, right? He peed himself. And when one of the girls said, "Oh, he's peeing himself. He peed himself," he went and jumped over her and I think he beat her on the cheek. For like a long time. The teacher had to take him, take him out. And this is it started like a lot of things happen. If you isolate just his childhood, you don't look at what he became, you will literally feel sad for him. Very, very sad for him, because no child should go through that. Of course, we have a lot of people that go through situations like that and they don't become psychopaths. But he did. Of course, he had the genetics and he is a psychopath. Everyone knows. A lot of doctors talk to him and he is a known psychopath. And people even say that he will do it again. Also, something else that I wanted to say is that now we finally understand why he killed these women. They all look alike. All the women look alike. And they all look like a version of himself as a female. And now we understand. So actually, he always felt like he was born in the wrong body. But at that time, no one would talk about that. And he was like a poor guy as well. So there wasn't something that would be possible. But now we understand that he actually felt like he was supposed to, born as a woman, and he didn't. So he actually killed the woman that he looked and thought that he could be that woman. Fear gripped São Paulo as news of the Maníaco do Parque spread. The media coverage intensified, and the public became more aware of the danger posed by Francisco. Women were warned to be cautious, especially when approached by strangers offering modeling opportunities. The investigation and capture. The police investigation into the murders intensified as more bodies were found. Desperate for leads, the authorities worked tirelessly to piece together the killer's profile. With the help of surviving victims who had managed to escape Francisco's grasp, they were able to create a clearer picture of the suspect. These survivors provided chilling details of his methods and his deceitful approach. In August 1998, Francisco de Assis Pereira fled São Paulo as the investigation closed in on him. He tried to evade capture by hiding in various cities across Brazil, but his run didn't last long. After a nationwide manhunt, he was arrested in Itaqui in the state of Rio Grande do Sul, which is actually where I'm from. Just days after his escape, his arrest brought an end to the reign of terror that had gripped São Paulo for months. The confession. After his capture, Francisco confessed to the murders of at least 11 women, although the actual number of victims is believed to be higher. In his confession, he detailed how he would lure his victims, the horrific acts he committed, and his twisted pleasure in watching them suffer. His cold and remorseless demeanor shocked the police and the public. Francisco showed no signs of guilt or regret, which only deepened the horror surrounding his crimes. His complete lack of empathy and enjoyment of inflicting pain marked him as one of Brazil's most notorious serial killers. Not only did he murder these women, but he also left them in a sexual position afterwards, and he would go back and sexually assault them after they were murdered. And he even starts to bite them. It's a case that really touches me, so it's hard for me. But he was horrible because most of, all of the women that survived said that he would, do sexually assault them, ask them to take off his clothes, to take off her clothes. They would put, he would wear their clothes, and he would say like, okay, I liked you, so I'm gonna let you go. And while this was happening, he would show the other bodies because it became like a cemetery, right? So he would say, okay, I liked you, so I'm gonna let you go, but I'm gonna count to, 20. You have to run. So these women would sometimes they would be naked and they would run for their life. And he had more than one opportunity to be caught. The police had more than one opportunity for him to be caught before. I think they had one opportunity even before he started killing. And one or two more after he started killing. So this case is very important to Brazilian history because I hope the police have learned with this mistake. The trial and sentencing. Francisco de Assis Pereira was brought to trial in 2000. The court found him guilty of multiple counts of murder, sexual assault, and other heinous crimes. He was sentenced to 268 years in prison, a term that reflected the sheer brutality and numbers of lives he had destroyed. But, of course, Brazil's law only allowed, at the time that he was convicted, only allowed people to spend 30 years in prison. So, in 2028, he will be free. Now, the law changed. It's 40 years. Big difference, but still. People are saying that they're gonna try to put him in like a mental hospital or something like this, but I don't know. I honestly don't know. Despite his sentence, Francisco's name still evokes fear. The case remains one of the most infamous in Brazilian history, not only because of the horrific nature of the crimes, but because of the widespread fear he created in São Paulo during his reign of terror. The psychological profile. Francisco was diagnosed with severe antisocial personality disorder. His complete lack of remorse, combined with his ability to manipulate and deceive, fits the profile of a classic psychopath. He was able to lead a seemingly normal life while hiding his dark desires and tendencies, a characteristic that made him even more dangerous. Experts who studied Francisco's case pointed out that he exhibited many of the signs of a predator, someone who thrives on power and control over others, particularly vulnerable women. The impact on São Paulo and Brazil. The Maníaco do Parque case left a lasting scar on São Paulo and Brazil. The fear he spread during the late 1990s was palpable. Women were afraid to go out alone, especially in parks, and the modeling industry itself became a focal point of fear for many young women, as Francisco had used it to lure his victims. This case also sparked conversations about safety, the vulnerability of women in public spaces, and the importance of being cautious when approached by strangers. The legacy of Francisco de Assis Pereira continues to be a reminder of the dangers posed by those who prey on others' dreams and vulnerabilities. The story of Francisco de Assis Pereira, Maníaco do Parque, is one that will never be forgotten in Brazil. His crimes were horrific, and the impact on his victims' families and the wider community is immeasurable. While he may be behind bars, his story continues to serve as a warning to us all about the dangers of those who hide behind charm and deceit. Thank you for watching this episode of Brazilian True Crime. If this story resonated with you, please share, and let's continue to raise awareness about the dangers of these predators. Stay safe, and I'll see you in the next episode.